We're going to talk about why Python, okay? And we're going to get into the debate on programming languages, Python's history, sort of, how long it's been around, what's so cool about it, and folks that use it. We're going to talk about the language debate. Programmers out there know what this is, the TIOBE community or programming community index. We're going to talk about what this graph represents. I think it's a subject of quite a bit of debate in the programming industry. But we'll touch on that. But we'll talk about what this is. As we can see in the graph here, Python's sort of maybe in the middle to the lower echelon, I guess. And we're going to talk about what those graph lines actually represent on the next slide. So popularity contests, really. I mean, that's it. So what TIOBE does is it calculates the number of search engine results for queries containing the name of the programming language. A lot of people would argue that that does not constitute popularity. There's all kinds of debate around this, but it's a graph, and it sort of gives you a litmus test or a benchmark, if you will, of where Python ranks in terms of search strings. It could also be used for data such as like jobs or other maybe economically driven data, but ultimately it's just, again, based on Google searches for Java or Python or whatever language it is you want. Here we go. This is stating the obvious. Java is the most popular. Okay, does not mean it's the best language or the right language to learn first. And this is a fact of the industry. People that then I'm specifically addressing this for folks that have no programming experience. There's always going to be people out there that say, "Oh, my language is better. Here's why," or I like Ruby because it's fun to program in, and then the Python guy will be like, well, Ruby's garbage collection sucks and all that jazz. It doesn't, don't just ignore all of that. Everybody has to start writing code somewhere, okay? Whatever language you choose to learn first isn't really relevant. What is relevant is the time you put into it, okay? Write code. I've had people ask me, well, how do I start writing Python, or how do I start writing Perl? And the answer that I always give is the same: write Perl, write Python. Even if it's bad code, write it. Right? It's for folks that didn't go to school for this. This is a learned skill, right? And the bottom line is, if you get intimately familiar with a language, picking up another language is easy because it's syntax differences. It's semantics. It's basically trivial. So we're going to talk about why Python. It's portable. It's available for a big range, a significant range of OSs and architectures. Python's very, very readable. It was designed with readability in mind, as one of its core tenets, I guess, if you will. Python is built around exceptions. We're going to talk about exceptions later in the actual programming class. But Python, every error is an exception, okay? And in Python, an exception is really just an object that represents an error. Errors are handled with exceptions, and this makes figuring out what happened in your code that was wrong really easy. So we'll talk about that later. It's multi-purpose. It's an interpreted scripting language. You can use it to do anything from writing GUI applications to simple scripts, command line scripts, to glue code that ties outputs from one program into inputs from another program. You can use it for a huge number of purposes. It's multi-purpose, and there's obviously more stuff, but hopefully that stuff will become apparent as you learn the language and see what it's capable of doing. So now we're going to talk about the next topic, and actually we're going to talk about Python's longevity. Which I think is pretty cool. So, history of Python. Python's creator and benevolent dictator for life is this crazy looking guy right here. His name is Guido van Rossum. First version released in February 1991. Why did he create it? Really, this is serious. He wanted something to occupy his time during his office's winter holiday break. He was bored. That's why he created it. He had nothing better to do. So yeah, there's that. We're going to talk about, sort of briefly go over major Python releases. 1.0 was released in '94, January '94. Here we have some of the major, I guess, points for each major version. Here we have some functions, I guess, or methods, if you will. Not really methods; they're actually functions, but we'll get into that later. Version 2.0 was released in 2000. We get list comprehensions, generators, garbage collection, nested scoping. We're going to talk about scoping later. Not going to get into generators. It's a little advanced. Might do some stuff with list comprehensions. And then version 3.0 was December of '08. Here's the kicker about version 3.0. They wanted to fix Python 2's design flaws, but in order to fix that, they would break backwards compatibility. So I chose Python version 2.7 for the focus of this course. There are quite a few really popular libraries that are not ported to Python 3 yet. It's coming. I think that folks don't really get too much of a benefit or rather a disadvantage in learning 2.7. I believe the differences in 2.7 to 3 are really almost minor. And then once you learn 2.7, picking up 3, again, super easy. It's the same language, not a big deal. So again, we're going to talk about this course. Python 2.7 was chosen. Python 3, we're lacking a lot of popular libraries. The other key reason, 2.7 ships with pretty much the majority of all the popular Linux distributions by default. Not to say that Python 3 is not available, but it's not a base package or anything like that. Also Mac OS X. Yeah, that's why we're going with 2.7. It's readily available, easily available, and there's still a lot of popular libraries that use it. So we're gonna go with that. This is why Python is cool. Everything is an object. Okay, everything. Well, not everything, but like 99% of stuff in Python is an object. Python is an object-oriented language. Period. Doesn't mean you can't write procedural or imperative code in it, which you can, but in Python everything is an object, and we are going to talk about what that means later. Ultimately, it makes writing object-oriented code very, very easy, because essentially by nature of the language, it's nice. Folks, I'm not too familiar with C# or Perl. But I know I think Nick K was the guy that mentioned writing Perl. I'm sure you can attest to Perl's object model. Python's nothing like it. Yeah. Python's been around a long time. So again, first release in I believe '91, makes it about 23 years old, going on 24. It's been around forever. Python's ubiquitous in open source community. Again, 2.7 is made in nearly every Linux distribution, and not only that, but there are Linux distributions that list Python 2.7 as a base dependency, meaning you can't install the operating system without it. Ubuntu is a good example. Debian's a good example. So yeah, it's near ubiquitous. Again, here's a list of all the operating systems that Python supports. So safe to say, usually, if you wrote Python code that would work on Linux, it should work on all these other operating systems. Again, there are caveats to that. For the most part, it should work. Readability, we're going to talk about that. Again, Python was designed with readability in mind. Whitespace is significant to an extent. A lot of people hate on Python because, it forces me to do whitespace a certain way. It doesn't, and we're gonna go over that later. But what the whitespace does do, it makes your code way more readable. Again, Perl guy, I know you can attest to this. You've seen some ugly Perl. I've seen some ugly Perl. You don't really get that with Python. I mean, you can, but you have to try harder to do it in Python. Easy to read, and thus easy to understand. I haven't come across any Python code, external open source libraries or not, that I haven't been able to like look at and figure and see, oh, that's what that's doing, because it's readable. Here's another reason why Python's awesome. The standard library that Python ships with, you can do a lot with. Really cool, and you get it for free. You don't have to install, a lot of external libraries or dependencies just out of the box. You get a lot of stuff you get a lot of included libraries that do a significant amount of stuff for you. And this is just reiterating what I just said. You can get more done without needing to install external libraries. Notable pieces of software. UFW. Okay, this is in Ubuntu. This is the front end for IP tables. It's all Python. Python apps are a series of Python libraries that interface with the app management system used in Ubuntu, Debian, I believe Linux Mint, the Synaptic Package Manager, for instance, in Ubuntu depends on these things. Wireshark totally uses Python in its GUI. GNS3, its GUI is written completely in Python. What else? Battlefield 2, there's a game for you. Python's used to keep score, and it's used to balance the teams and multiplayer. Here are some websites. Web frameworks and web applications are pretty big in Python. So all these websites that I'm about to show you run Python. Google, Reddit, Instagram, Pinterest, Bitbucket. The Onion runs on a Python Django-based website. Some companies. Let's see, Amazon, Google, Internet Network Expert, obligatory mention. CERN, where the Large Hadron Collider is. NASA uses Python pretty extensively. Industrial Light and Magic, the guys that did the special effects for like Star Wars and stuff like that, they use Python extensively as well.